Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. My name is Steven Zeiner. Today's Monday, November 20th, 2023. So this morning at about 8:05 a.m., I saw a news release by Stronghold Digital Mining basically confirming that the company would indeed host its first ever Analyst and Investor Day on Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. And this is going to be held, if I'm not mistaken, at the NASDAQ market site. And that's down by Times Square, if I'm not mistaken. And although it's not mentioned in the news release, my guess is that this might be held inside of essentially this auditorium that exists at the NASDAQ market site. So why is this such a big deal? And why am I so excited about this? So if you'll recall, on November 10th, 2023, Stronghold Digital Mining deployed its first Karbolith direct air carbon capture device as a field test over at the Scrubgrass mine waste reclamation facility. The thinking and goal was for this field test to validate that the beneficial use ash that's produced by Stronghold Digital Mining is capable of actually absorbing carbon from the air. Pretty amazing. Now, let's think about this somewhat rationally and with a bit of a skeptical perspective, okay? Remember, the company, I believe, did Carbonetic out in California, they basically, if I'm not mistaken, they performed 3 separate different types of laboratory tests on the beneficial use ash to determine whether or not it was capable of absorbing carbon dioxide. Greg Beard, our beloved Chief Executive Officer, as I've sometimes said, right? Greg is both a beacon of hope, but then for some, he's a pariah. I mean, it's a very difficult role, I think, to be the Chief Executive Officer of a publicly traded company where, again, you're kind of having to wear so many different hats, play so many different roles, placate so many different constituencies, right? Not an easy job. But from my perspective, I'm so grateful that we have him as our Chief Executive Officer. So Greg mentioned in our Q3 2023 investor presentation that he evidently witnessed firsthand a test wherein, I guess it took about 10 minutes, right, within a laboratory setting, with solution, right, for the ash to actually absorb carbon dioxide. So, needless to say, a field test is going to then determine, well, okay, hey, in the field, not in a lab, how quickly or not can our beneficial use ash absorb carbon dioxide? So my thinking is, right, if you look at this from a skeptical perspective, right, from a, sort of like a, hey, let's really sort of be rigorous in our approach to this. Why in the world would Stronghold Digital Mining issue a news release today, November 20th, about 10 days after the beginning of this field test, if the results were abysmal? I mean, stop and think about that for a minute. What are you going to do? You're going to invite a bunch of analysts and investors, right, to the NASDAQ market site. Maybe you're going to have them sit down in the auditorium. You're going to get up on stage and say, hey, guys, look under your seat. There's a little bag of beneficial use ash. That is your gift from us for showing up today. Hey, there's no news to report. The field test was an abysmal failure. We got to go back to the drawing board. We'll be in touch again, maybe in 6 months when we perhaps have something to share with you. No way. There's no way that's going to happen. This news release would not have come out today, right? If anything, maybe at some point in the future, we would have had a news release saying, hey, we're continuing to conduct due diligence, right? We're doing additional field tests. At this juncture, we're not going to have any sort of investor or analyst day on December 12th, but we will be sure to alert the market when we're ready to unveil the results of our field tests, right? It would be something more like that. So my operational assumption, and you tell me if you think I'm being reasonable or am I just being blindly optimistic here, you tell me, okay, in the comments, But I mean, you know, hey, right. At this point, wouldn't it make sense that if we're doing this investor day, the news release came out today that we probably have something good to share? I can't imagine that we're going to, stand in front of, the investment community and basically say we've got nothing. Now, hey, might it be, look, we're absorbing carbon at 8%. We think that's a meaningful first step. Our next milestone is 10% on the path to 12%. Sure, you could have a comment like that. But at this juncture, I think there's line of sight to that roughly 12% goal, right, of carbon absorption. Now, does that mean that that's it? That's as high as the absorption rate is going to go? Probably not, right? I don't have to take Greg's word for it. I know with, absolute certainty that this is, in fact, a very innovative group of individuals, and that the potential exists to maybe play around with the mixture that goes into the CFB. Maybe the output will be able to attract and absorb even more carbon. Even leaving that aside, I think the amount of air and the temperature of that air, the humidity level of that air, right, that goes into this beneficial use hash, all of these factors are going to help determine how quickly or not carbon dioxide is absorbed by the beneficial use hash. So I think there's a very reasonable chance that 12% is kind of like the initial goalpost, but it wouldn't surprise me if we could bump that up to maybe 15%, maybe even up to 20% or a little bit more. Who knows? But obviously, we first need to show proof that we can actually get into the ballpark of 12%. 8, 10, 12%, right? We got to be somewhere in there with a clear game plan to really optimize that process. So what do you think? I mean, at this point, I'm sensing, as I shared a moment ago, like, look, we're not going to invite everybody to New York City only to have this be a flop, right? For that, we could just kind of put out a news release saying, hey, you know what? We're still not there yet. So I think this bodes very, very, very well for this project. Now, I am going to link in the description to this video to a rather lengthy, I think it was like a 20 post thread on X/Twitter that I created yesterday, Sunday, November 19th. And in that thread, I really go into a lot of detail about this Karbolith device. I mean, I show satellite imagery. I extract somewhat obscure images from our Q3 2023 investor presentation. I take a very close look at the two photos that have been released. One was just a separate photo released of the Karbolith. The other was extracted from the investor presentation. I hypothesize as to what, where in fact this equipment is being located at Scrubgrass. I hypothesize as to why there may be this sort of like a translucent portion of the Karbolith. I talk about how I suspect these may be standard-sized shipping containers that have been very cleverly engineered to accomplish what really can seem like science fiction, right? Capturing carbon dioxide from the air. That's pretty amazing. And it's not science fiction. I mean, this is as real as it gets. So feel free to visit that link in the description of this broadcast. I find that sometimes it's a little bit easier and perhaps more concise to share that type of detailed information in written form than to do so via a broadcast like this. But it's not just about the Karbolith device itself. I eventually get into the math, how much revenue we have the potential to generate. I mean, the one thing I'll kind of share with you here in the broadcast is that if we're able to truly validate the efficacy of this device and its ability to do what we think it can do, I'm inclined to believe that we may potentially put that 25 megawatts of end-to-end data center infrastructure, we may put that up for sale. Money Matt, I'm saying Money Matt to distinguish Matt, our chief financial officer, from, I don't know, Legal Matt, right, who is a member, right, of the Stronghold Digital Mining management team who focuses on legal matters. Both Matts made an appearance in our Q3 2023 investor presentation, but in this instance, I'm referring to Money Matt. Money Matt specifically mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, that the real world value of this 25 megawatts of end-to-end data center infrastructure is probably somewhere in the range of $10 to $15 million. That being the case, for the purposes of my analysis, I just split the difference. I said, hey, what if we can sell this for $12.5 million? It would appear that if we are in fact able to get the manufacturing costs of these Karboliths to about $60,000 per unit, let's assume we need 150 of them, which is a number that's cited in the Q3 2023 investor presentation. I think I came up with a $9 million price tag for basically all 150 of them if we needed 150, right, at a price of $60,000 per unit. If the ROI is anything even remotely close to the very, very conservative numbers I came up with, I don't see a point in attempting to co-locate this data center equipment at some third site that we don't even control and that we'd essentially be, energizing through some third-party PPA, right, a power purchase agreement, or like some sort of quasi sub PPA. It just doesn't make any sense. Listen, the data centers that we have at Scrubgrass and at Panther Creek, if you do the math, right, if you were to just magically wave a wand and say, hey, you know what, we're going to just get the most radically efficient Bitcoin mining machines in there, I think we'd probably be well above 5 exahash, if not closer to 6 exahash, depending on, the specs, just based on, the amount of electricity that we have flowing into those data centers. So there's tremendous opportunity if we really wanted to sort of like high grade our fleet. I don't even know that that's necessary. I mean, I think we've got what we've got. We've got a basket of assets that are very good heading into the halving, heading into what is likely to be the next Bitcoin bull run. Okay. This opportunity as it relates to carbon capture is not going to have. If anything, it's going to accelerate, right? I don't know that I want to gamble on, despite whatever I may personally feel about carbon capture and sort of the threat to carbon, to humankind or anything else, just leaving that aside for a moment. I don't know that I want to be betting on carbon, sort of like not being something that's talked about a lot and for which there's tremendous amounts of money being thrown around to try to mitigate it. See what I'm starting to say? Like, this is a tidal wave. Whether we are for it, against it, whether we're indifferent to it, or have very strong feelings about it, it's just, it is what it is, okay? And so I'm incredibly, incredibly excited by what I'm seeing insofar as our potential to monetize the capture of carbon, which, specific to the issue of Bitcoin mining, will dramatically drive down our net cost of power. So, hey, if we're just going to look at this purely from the perspective of Bitcoin, okay, let's do that. Let's both agree that one of the major, if not the biggest costs involved with mining Bitcoin is electricity. Wouldn't it be kind of awesome if Stronghold Digital Mining could drive down its cost of electricity? I mean, that would be really, really useful for the purposes of Bitcoin mining, right? I think we could agree on that. So I don't look at this carbon capture initiative as some sort of like distraction from Bitcoin mining. To me, it is the essential element that can help differentiate us and probably even help us generate, maximize the amount of revenue we have the potential to generate if we're able to really drive down our costs, our net cost of power. Not to mention, it's just a really useful source of additional revenue for the company. These Karboliths, you know, I don't get the impression that they are these radically technologically advanced pieces of equipment similar to, like, say, a Bitcoin mining machine that will need to be replaced in a couple of years. You know, I get the impression that, yes, there's going to be some maintenance. Yes, there's going to be some, OpEx, right? But that generally speaking, they're going to maintain their value, well into the foreseeable future once we have them set up. Whereas Bitcoin mining machines, even if we were to get the latest and greatest Bitcoin mining machines today, I guarantee that in 5 years, those same machines would likely be pretty darn close to being obsolete. Kind of sucks. Greg himself, right, our CEO, right, on the Q3 2023 investor presentation, mentioned we've got, right, all these rapidly depreciating Bitcoin mining machines. Yeah. Now, something else I posted today, and again, this is all in X, is this idea that, hey, look, there's a lot of maybes here. But if we see during the next bull run, right, sustainable hash prices of about 15 cents for about a 12-month period of time, that represents an approximately $200 million plus revenue windfall for Stronghold Digital Mining. It's pretty remarkable. Yeah, there are some what ifs built into that, so to speak. But from my perspective, I'm sort of figuring on like a network hash rate of like 900. But I'm also figuring in if figuring in is the appropriate way to say it, right? I'm kind of like including as one of my input variables to this computation. Maybe that's a better way to say it. I'm also really thinking, hey, Bitcoin will have to step up and become the world-class digital asset that so many of its proponents have claimed it to be. Look, all I ever wanted Bitcoin to be is peer-to-peer electronic cash. All right. And that does betray a little bit of my philosophical view as it relates to how Bitcoin has evolved. No, I did not sell my Bitcoin Cash, otherwise derisively known as Bcash, right? But listen, I've supported what the overall Bitcoin community has wanted to do. They want to make it a store of value. They want to make it digital gold. Okay, great. At a price of $300,000 per coin, the market cap for Bitcoin would be about $6 trillion. That's still about half of what gold's market cap is today. And we both know that gold really hasn't done much in a decade, okay? So I don't know that I'm being outrageously optimistic in simply saying, hey, if this is going to be digital gold, if this is going to be a store of value, if this is supposed to be a superior version of gold, okay, great. That's awesome. Can it at least be then during the next bull run in the price of Bitcoin, which, by the way, might coincide with all types of financial market upheavals, right? Raging budget deficits here in the United States, potentially a recession, a Fed pivot with interest rates going back to zero, inflation going out of control, hopefully not too out of control, because that's no fun. Hey, listen, can Bitcoin be what it's supposed to be? And if it's not going to be that, then so be it. I kind of jokingly said, it's either going to be a world-class digital asset that can have a multi-trillion-dollar market cap, or it's just going to be kind of like a roach that zigzags on a wall, and we just kind of sit in front of that wall watching this roach zigzag up and down, and we gamble on what direction it's going to take next. Okay? Hey, I'm pro Bitcoin. I really am. And I'm a team player, and I'm like, okay, hey, the community as a whole has spoken. Hey, we want it to be a store of value. We want it to be digital gold, right? Okay, so be it. Let's then root for it to be what the community has deemed it, its ultimate purpose to be. It's going to be digital gold. Awesome. Gold, by I think many, many measures, has a roughly $12 trillion market cap. I don't think I'm being unreasonable. I don't think I'm being outrageous in saying, hey, maybe Bitcoin can have a multi-trillion-dollar market cap. Let's call it $6 trillion. That's about $300,000 a coin. Okay? Combine that with the halving already having occurred, and combine that with a 900 exahash a second Bitcoin network hash rate. If my math is right, that's about a 15-cent hash price. If we can sustain that for about a year or so, Stronghold Digital Mining stands to be the beneficiary of a roughly $200+ million revenue windfall, given its 4 exahash of hopefully at that point, right, plugged in, activated, working Bitcoin mining infrastructure. I'm not trying to give other members of the Bitcoin community a hard time. I'm just saying, I think all of us collectively want to see Bitcoin stop being the roach that's just zigzagging up and down on a wall and actually have it become like a real store of value. And I think there are a lot of catalysts that can point to that happening, especially if there is basically a lot of like Wall Street backed ETF type products, which can serve as an on-ramp for capital to flow, meaningful amounts of capital to flow into Bitcoin. So, I'm not really trying to give other members of the Bitcoin community a hard time. I think, collectively trying to rally us to kind of have a vision of Bitcoin then. If we're saying it's going to be gold, right, digital gold, if we're saying it's going to be a store of value, let's aspirationally at least aim for it being half of the so-called dead rock, the dead shiny, rock gold. Let's have it be at least worth half of what gold's market cap is then. Tell me what you think about that. Like, what are your views on this? I'm genuinely interested in hearing that. So I think that's kind of where we're at this point. I mean, this is all really, really positive news, I think. Especially the fact that we're going to have this investor day, this analyst day. I'm really excited about it. There apparently will be a webcast, which is awesome. New York City traffic is abysmal. It's somewhat nightmarish. I'm not that far from New York. I'm in New York fairly regularly. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of having to wade into the city on a weekday with all kinds of traffic. So I'm very grateful that there's going to be a webcast. So we're all going to be able to tune in and hopefully check this out, which I'm really excited about. So, okay, with all of that said, my friend, let me know what you think in the comments. And again, I'll just remind you one more time, I'm going to go ahead and link not only actually to the news release that came out today, but to that, I think, very detailed set of posts that I made on X/Twitter yesterday regarding the Karbolith. I think you might find it very interesting. So, okay, with all of that said, let's be positive, let's be great, and we'll see each other again tomorrow.